What if the greatest threat to your relationship isn't something waiting in the future, but something buried in the past? What if her old heartbreaks, silent regrets, and even childhood wounds are quietly shaping the way she loves you now? Today, we peel back the layers to expose how a woman's history molds the present, rewrites the future, and why pretending it doesn't could cost you everything. You see, when you meet a woman, you are not meeting her for the first time. Not really. You are meeting the sum of every emotion she has ever felt, every disappointment she has ever endured, and every illusion she once believed in before it shattered. She carries within her a gallery of memories, each one whispering its own story. Some gentle, some heavy, all alive beneath the surface. And whether she admits it or not, those stories still move through her. They shape the tone of her silence, the rhythm of her affection, the distance in her eyes when you say something that sounds too familiar to a memory she'd rather forget. Most men don't see this. They assume affection erases history, that presence replaces memory, that love is a clean slate when it is in truth a palimpsest, a layered manuscript written over older scripts that never truly fade. They try to be the man who proves her wrong, the man who heals her pain, the man who finally gives her peace, and in that effort to rescue her, they surrender their own center. They become characters in her unhealed story, trapped in a narrative that was never theirs to begin with. The stoic man understands a deeper truth. Love is not about rewriting another person's past. It is about standing so firmly in your own that no ghost can move you. He knows that every woman, no matter how radiant she seems, carries the shadow of something she once lost. And that shadow is not an enemy to fight, but a reflection to understand. He does not compete with it. He observes it. He allows her to face it by refusing to be drawn into it. Because he knows that what truly earns a woman's respect is not constant reassurance, not endless pursuit, but stillness. The calm that cannot be rewritten by emotion or history. A woman tests you, not because she enjoys conflict, but because her memory demands proof. It asks silently, will you bend where others did? Will you lose yourself in trying to prove you're different? Will you become another echo of the same story? When you react with insecurity, defensiveness, or excessive reassurance, her instincts read it as repetition. To her, it feels like the same cycle returning, the same lack of masculine stability she once suffered through. But when you respond with calm, when your presence holds its shape through tension, when you remain grounded in your truth, something begins to shift. Her nervous system recalibrates. Her trust starts to build, not through words, but through the quiet conviction that you cannot be swayed by ghosts. This is the unspoken architecture of attraction. It's not about dominance or control. It's about equilibrium. A woman's attraction deepens when she senses that your emotional state is self-contained, when she realizes your peace is not conditional upon her reactions or moods. In a world where most men chase validation, the rare man who doesn't flinch becomes unforgettable. He becomes the emotional constant in a world that once felt unpredictable. Understand this, every woman on some level carries emotional residue, fragments of attachment, loss, and survival. It is not a flaw, it's human nature. But how you relate to that residue defines your role in her life. The man who fears it becomes consumed by it. The man who tries to erase it gets lost in it. But the man who accepts its existence without being altered by it becomes the one she subconsciously respects. Because to her, he represents what the past could not break. This is what separates the average man from the stoic man. The average man seeks comfort in her validation. The stoic man generates calm from within. The average man tries to heal her wounds. The stoic man embodies strength that makes healing possible. The average man explains himself endlessly. The stoic man's silence explains him better. Because women do not fall for explanations, they fall for embodiment. The moment you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to rewrite her memories. You stop taking her emotional storms personally. You start to see that her reactions are less about you and more about the echoes within her that your presence awakens. And instead of defending yourself against those echoes, you let them play out while you remain still, composed, aware, and quietly observing. That is how respect is born, not through grand gestures, but through unshakable presence. When she feels that your self-control does not waver, when she senses that your peace is real and earned, not performed, her body relaxes, her mind stops scanning for danger, and her heart begins to open, not out of fear, but out of trust. This is the secret few men ever realize. A woman's love expands in the space created by your stillness, and her respect grows in proportion to how unmoved you remain by her past. Because when you refuse to fight her ghosts, she finally sees a man who isn't one. The past only haunts the weak. The strong allow it to reveal truth. And the stoic man, grounded, patient, and immovable, becomes not just her partner, but her anchor in a world still haunted by its memories. You must understand something essential about human nature. The mind is not built to forget. It is built to protect. When a woman experiences heartbreak, betrayal, or instability, her subconscious doesn't simply store the event. It builds defenses around it. Every new man she meets is quietly compared to the ghosts that built those walls, not by choice, but by survival. And this is where many men unknowingly lose their footing. They take those comparisons personally, failing to see that what she resists in the present is not you, but what your presence awakens in her memory. Her reactions are often echoes, emotional residues of unfinished stories. She may flinch at kindness that feels too familiar to manipulation. She may pull away from silence because it reminds her of neglect. She may test your patience not out of malice, but because she needs to feel the difference between the man who broke her and the one who won't. Every contradiction she shows you, warmth followed by withdrawal, affection laced with suspicion, is her nervous system trying to predict pain before it happens. And this is where your strength is measured. For the average man, these contradictions create frustration. He demands clarity, he demands validation, he demands peace before he has earned her trust. He begins to explain himself, defend his intentions, and bargain with emotion, all of which make him appear smaller in her eyes, because to her instinct, that behavior signals uncertainty. And uncertainty, no matter how kind, still feels unsafe. But the stoic man knows that composure is the highest currency of power. He understands that her storms are not threats to his authority. They are invitations to display it. He remains unmoved, not because he is detached, but because he is anchored in a reality that does not depend on her mood. His stillness becomes the unspoken answer to her deepest question: can I trust this man to stay steady when my emotions are not? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A man who lives by this truth becomes unshakable in the eyes of any woman. Because the very essence of feminine energy is motion, emotion, intuition, change, while the essence of the masculine is structure, order, and stillness. When those two meet, chaos meets calm, and attraction is born from that tension. But when calm collapses into chaos, attraction dissolves. This is not about dominance. It is about energetic polarity, about creating a contrast strong enough for her to feel safe within it. The woman who carries emotional residue from the past does not need saving. She needs to encounter a man who does not mirror her instability. A man who can sit in the discomfort of her guardedness without reacting to it. Because the more he reacts, the more he becomes part of the same emotional landscape she is trying to escape. You see, a woman will forgive a man's mistakes faster than she will forgive his weakness. Mistakes reveal humanity, Weakness reveals uncertainty, and uncertainty reminds her of the instability she once survived, the kind that left her questioning her worth, her trust, her peace. That is why women are drawn to men who speak less and hold presence more. To her, composure is not silence. It is strength disguised as calm. Here lies the Machiavellian dimension of this truth. Power in relationships does not belong to the one who feels more, but to the one who controls the frame of meaning. When you react emotionally, you surrender the frame. You allow her mood to define the atmosphere. But when you remain measured, when your tone stays calm, your posture remains steady, and your eyes reflect certainty, you set the emotional gravity of the moment. And whether she realizes it consciously or not, she orbits that gravity. A man who understands behavioral psychology knows that emotions are contagious. They spread like fire through tone, breath, and micro-expression. If you enter her emotional world and lose your composure, you amplify her fear. If you remain calm and grounded, you neutralize it. This is the quiet dominance of masculine energy. Not control over her, but control over yourself in the presence of her storm. It is easy to command when all is peaceful, but true masculine mastery reveals itself when chaos enters the room. That is when you must remember, her emotions are waves, you are the shore. Her past will bring tides, but tides retreat when they meet steadiness. If you fight the water, you drown. If you stand firm, the sea eventually calms. Every time you maintain composure, every time you choose patience over reaction, her subconscious rewrites its pattern. It begins to associate stillness with safety, and safety with you. That is how her respect grows, not through performance, but through consistency. Because women do not trust words, they trust repetition. They trust the man who remains the same through her best days and her worst moods. This is why the stoic man's power compounds silently over time. While the average man exhausts himself trying to prove loyalty, affection, or understanding, the stoic man proves it by existing as a constant. He doesn't chase, he doesn't correct, he doesn't demand, he simply is. And in his being, she rediscovers what peace feels like. Because in the end, she doesn't need you to erase her past. She needs to feel that her past no longer dictates the present. And that realization only happens when she meets a man who refuses to compete with ghosts. A man whose strength reminds her that some stories finally end. There comes a point in every man's journey where he realizes that love, in its truest form, is not a sanctuary from the past. It is the battlefield upon which the past is finally put to rest. The woman beside you is not just your partner. She is a living reflection of everything within you that remains unmastered. Her emotions will surface your impatience. Her fears will test your peace. Her past will expose whether your strength is performative or real. And in those moments, when her eyes search yours for evidence of stability, she isn't asking if you love her. She's asking if your presence is strong enough to hold what once broke her. When you understand this, your entire perception of attraction changes. You stop viewing her mood swings as volatility and start seeing them as trust tests, unconscious invitations for you to prove, not with words, but with composure, that you are unlike what came before. Because the past is not erased through affection, it is overwritten through consistency. And the man who holds steady through emotional turbulence becomes the man her instincts begin to rewire around. A woman cannot feel safe in the presence of a man who reacts to her every emotional shift. But when she feels your calm, not the detached coldness of apathy, but the living warmth of inner order, she begins to lower the defenses her history built. In that stillness, her nervous system finds a new pattern, and her attraction becomes something deeper than excitement. It becomes reverence. Reverence for the man who did not need to dominate her to lead her. Reverence for the man who did not need to fix her to free her. The Stoics taught that peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to remain unmoved within them. In love, this truth becomes flesh. Every time you choose silence over argument, patience over reaction, observation over judgment, you teach her nervous system that it is safe to trust again. And that lesson, repeated in your tone, your body language, your restraint, begins to dismantle the old architecture of fear her past built. But do not mistake calm for weakness. Stillness is not the absence of power, it is power refined. It is the control that requires no display, the confidence that does not depend on being understood, the authority that does not demand acknowledgement. A man ruled by impulse is predictable. A man anchored in discipline is untouchable. And in the quiet space between her tests and your responses, your silence speaks louder than any promise could. Machiavelli once wrote that the wise man appears unyielding, not because he resists the world, but because he bends to it only when bending serves his design. So too must you learn to bend, not to her emotions, but around them, to read the current without becoming the current, to allow her feelings to move through the air without contaminating your breath. This is not manipulation, it is mastery. It is the art of guiding through gravity, not pressure. Her respect does not rise from what you give her, but from what you withhold. Your reaction, your need for reassurance, your tendency to explain what should be felt instead. Every time you choose restraint, you reinforce your role as the emotional axis of the relationship. And slowly, her subconscious begins to trust the rhythm of your steadiness more than the memories of her chaos. That is when her attraction evolves from fascination to devotion. But make no mistake, this transformation begins with you, not her. The past that haunts her can only control the parts of you that remain unhealed. If you carry resentment, insecurity, or hidden fear, her history will awaken them, and you will confuse reaction with connection. You will think her emotions provoke you, when in truth, they are revealing you. And until you master that reflection, the ghosts of her past will keep finding new ways to test your composure. The wise man studies this instead of resisting it. He welcomes every test as a mirror, not a challenge to his worth, but a measurement of his discipline. He uses every storm to polish his calm, every contradiction to sharpen his patience, every silence to strengthen his focus. He does not aim to win the argument, but to preserve his peace, for he knows that the moment he loses that, he loses himself. There will be times when your restraint will be misunderstood, when your silence will be mistaken for indifference, when your steadiness will be seen as detachment. Let it be. Do not rush to correct perception. For the man who lives by principle, not validation, knows that truth needs time, not defense. And over time, she will see what words could never teach her, that your calm was not distance, it was protection. Your stillness was not coldness, it was clarity. Then something begins to shift in her. Her tone softens, her eyes steady, her walls loosen. Not because you forced them, but because she realizes you were never her enemy. You were the first man who did not make her past worse. You were the first man who stayed still long enough for her to stop fighting what wasn't happening anymore. And in that moment, she stops seeing you through the lens of her history and starts seeing you as the man who finally ended it. This is the quiet triumph of the Stoic man. Not that he conquers the woman, but that he transcends the battle. He becomes the symbol of calm in a world addicted to noise, the image of strength in a landscape of reaction. And long after the arguments fade, the memory of his composure lingers, haunting her not with pain, but with respect. Because in the end, a woman's past can only haunt a man who is still chasing peace. But the man who is peace, who stands unmoved, unprovoked, and unbroken, becomes the very thing her past cannot touch. And that is how her ghosts finally rest.